So we have a little time this evening to do some questions. The first question is the qualities of the mind related to the five dhyana Buddhas. And is this useful for Dzogchen meditation? The five Buddhas, who are the Buddhas of the five families, are from the tantric point of view, the purification of the five poisons. A poison is something that makes you sick. And when the poisons are recognized as being having the same basis as the five wisdoms, which are the basis for the five Buddhas, then the poison becomes medicine. So the central of the five Dhyani Buddhas is Vairochana. His name in Tibetan is Nangpa Nangze, and he means light going everywhere, or total illumination. So when we look at ourselves, the poison that this transforms is that of mental dullness or assumption. That means I know who I am. I've been living in this body all my life. I know what I do, what I like to eat, and so on. So I have my body and my habits of speech and thought and emotion, which mark me as different from other people. I feel separate and different. If it gets too different and separated, I'm likely to feel lonely. And if I antidote that by getting very involved with other people, I'm likely to feel a bit overwhelmed and invaded. So our individual identity is a dynamic formation in a dynamic world or field of unfolding. And so we're trying to manage our situation by allocating different values and making choices on the basis of how we understand the world. The purification of this is when we see that our mind is not a personal thing, that when we sit in the practice, we see the arising and passing of thoughts, feelings, memories, and so on. If we identify with these arisings, they become the ingredients of I, me, myself. But if we don't identify with them, then it's just like waves on the ocean, rising and passing, rising and passing. And we see that it's not just thoughts and feelings that are like that, but when we get up from sitting practice, we see the colors and shapes of the world, the objects we identify are all within this revealing mirror of the mind. This is the wisdom or original knowing or the way of knowing of the ground, which has been there from the beginning. And this is called in particular the knowing, the primordial knowing of the Dharma Dhatu, or the infinite hospitality that welcomes all phenomena. Just as when you look in a mirror and you can see many different things, but what you're actually seeing is an array of reflection, which is just light. In terms of the reflections belonging in the mirror, the reflections have no fundamental differentiation from each other. So in the same way, when we look at everything which is arising for us, it arises in this revealing space, which is awareness, in which there is differentiation of patterning, yet at the same time, sameness of quality or nature. That is to say, they are all empty of inherent existence. No phenomena, no seeming entity or manifestation is outside the infinite light of the mind. So when we meet with other people and we discuss whatever politics or the weather or the virus, we have different opinions. These opinions don't establish any definite truth. but their rich variety is an expression of the potential of the mind to show many possibilities. Each phenomena as it manifests is unique and specific. It is just this. But the just thisness, which is absolutely singular, is not dependent on a private internal essence. So if we understand this, it's in the language of Dzogchen, we have primordial purity and the effortlessly arising display of experience moment by moment. So these are technical terms and they point in the same direction. The ground of everything is empty and unborn, but this unbornness is ceaselessly appearing or manifesting or showing. So when we see the specific formations which are arising, the task of our meditation practice is to stay relaxed and allow the revelation of the self-liberation or the self-vanishing of whatever is arising. But when our mental capacity, that is to say, these latent patterns of energy, which we can mobilize or not, when we become a bit excited and we jump into this play of energy, our attention is always particularizing. And that means that we make some things more important than others. And because the things that I'm drawn to are special for me, they seem to be real, more real than the other things. And then we're back with this root poison of mental dullness. So the central point is to keep the integrity or the intrinsic integration of all phenomena within the unborn space of revelation. I mean, there's a lot more that could be said about this. The other four of these poisons and wisdoms flow naturally from this basic one. As soon as there is something, there is liking and not liking. And that's the main point, that if you release the grasping energy of holding on to phenomena as if there was something there you could keep, if you release that, then all the other energetic confusions release by themselves. So this leads on to the next question: how to reduce self-reference when distracted in practice, i.e. conscious attempts to self-correct, bringing us into duality. Yes, a conscious attempt to self-correct, thinking I haven't done this right. What do I need to do now? Oh, as long as we take ourselves to be a subject with ongoing existence, these problems will arise. So if a thought arises like, I'm not meditating well today, or I don't know how to meditate, it seems obvious to us that this phrasing has ourselves, I, me, myself, as its object and its referent, what's being addressed. But when we sit present with ourselves, we find that the content or the ingredients of ourselves are arising and passing. And yet I seem to continue to exist. If I was doing some sitting yesterday, I might compare the two and say, yesterday was better than today. Yesterday is gone. I have only a vague memory of my practice yesterday, and yet I'm able to talk about it as if I was considering something definite and enduring. The key thing here, from the Dzogchen point of view, is not to turn this into a further kind of problem. It's just to see this is movement. The thought arises and passes. Yesterday I did this. This is some ideas arising in the mind or some words coming out of my mouth. They are creating what they seem to refer to. When we speak, we think we are talking about things. but it is in fact the dynamic activity of thinking, feeling, sensing, speaking, which brings into presence a particular patterning of experience. So when I say, today it was raining in London and I feel a little bit, I don't know, a bit heavy or sad because of that, I'm longing for spring. These are statements we can all understand. We understand them because I seem to be talking about something. I'm talking about the weather. It was raining, but the rain was falling out of the sky, was dynamic movement. And my thought about I would prefer a warm spring day, that's also a movement. Everything is movement. It's not that when we, as in Buddhism, when we first study impermanence, things are moving like a train going from one station to another. Rather, we start to see that there is only movement. There are not things that move, but movement is interpreted as thing. This is what we read about as grasping. So in Tibetan, they call it dagzin, means like holding on to something. It was raining. I'm talking about something, but I'm actually talking about movement. The water comes from the cloud down through the sky onto the road, and then it starts to flow and goes down into the drain. Everything we experience is moving. Now, you might be sitting in your room and you're looking maybe across the room at the wall, and you might have a vase or a painting. I remember where I bought that. I bought it 10 years ago. Now you're talking about something, but actually you're bringing what's arising in your mind is a series of thoughts. The vase has no inherent existence. It arose in a factory, maybe it's a glass vase from sand that was heated to a certain temperature and so on. And it's held in place by not being dropped. I'm thinking about the idea of the vase, because the vase will look different with different light, or whether you have flowers in it or not. The vase is something which is revealing new potentials each time you engage with it. Because in fact, if you're looking at it, what you call the vase is a stream of light coming in through your eyes. So it's helpful to reflect on your own experience in this way and see, I make the world solid. It's not that there is a self-existing I, which now has to be dealt with because it's a problem, but rather that the felt sense of I comes into existence through the patterning of mental energy. There is no individual essence behind the appearance. So when you're sitting in meditation and the thought arises, oh, I can't meditate today, you can fall into that thought. And it seems to be telling you something quite meaningful about how you are today. But actually, it's the unification of your energy of belief and the patterning of the thought which creates the felt sense that you're talking about yourself and your current situation. If we just allow the thought to come in the mind and don't get involved, it goes. Who was it referring to? No one. It refers to me if I bring myself into the frame as the subject that the thought is talking about. And that movement of participation is just a little movement of energy. It's the energy of belief. When we see that everything is self-liberating. But when we believe in entities, it is as if entities are enduring and are there by themselves. Now, you don't have to do a lot to get clarity in this situation. It's not that thoughts are bad and you should somehow get rid of them. The thought comes, I can't meditate. It's not referring to anyone. It will refer to me if I get involved. If I go to the shop to buy a jacket, there's a lot of jackets hanging on the pegs. They are jackets. If I try one on and it seems to be okay, it becomes my jacket. I pay the money, which allows me to call it my jacket. But it really becomes my jacket when I believe it is my jacket. You can observe for yourself what is the difference between our jacket and my jacket. It's an identification, which is a movement of energy. So this is what happens in the meditation. We identify with the idea of myself as my continuous point of reference. And then whatever is arising, whether it's sensation or feeling or memory, it's linked together with this fixed point of reference, which is me. I'm talking about myself. This is my experience. So my existence is my belief in my existence. So then you observe, why am I believing in the existence of this which is always vanishing? Then you can start to see what they mean in Buddhism by delusion. I am making the item that I believe to be the eternal truth of me. Now, this is crazy. If it's a construct, it can't be eternal. This is a pattern arising and vanishing. It is directly here and immediate. It's not just some fantasy. This is it. This is my life here. And it's ever changing. There is no originating personal essence or maintaining personal essence or agent that brings about the dissolving. So when we get caught up in thinking about how we're doing and worried that we don't know what we're doing, try simply to see, oh, this is movement. If I leave it alone, it will go by itself. And if I hang on to it, it will tie me in knots. So this links to the next question, which is, we experience emptiness, don't we? And the second part is, who is the one who experiences it? Oh, we don't experience emptiness. You can experience a cup of coffee, you can experience eating an orange or going for a walk, but emptiness is nothing there-ness. Experience is how we describe our life inside duality. I experience this. I am the subject here, this is the object there, and I can know about the object. But emptiness is not an object. It is ungraspable, and in fact, it is the ungraspability of everything. So here is the cup. I'm holding the cup. I'm grasping it. It comes into existence through my grasping. I am holding the cup. I feel the weight of the cup. The weight of the cup confirms the reality of the cup and the reality of myself as the subject knowing the cup. That is the way we formulate our experience inside the paradigm of duality. We create a narrative. We are talking about something. As I was trying to indicate just previously, the thing that I am talking about is born from or called into its seeming existence by my way of talking about it. Everything we experience is the movement of our mind. Our thoughts and feelings and memories can make buildings and motor cars and airplanes and so on. We know that different airplanes have different qualities of seats in them. It's undeniable. Some seats are more comfortable than others. Something is there to think and feel and talk about. Emptiness is not like that. When we have the sense of emptiness, we're like a child running into the park early in the morning. No other children are there. All the swings are empty. And the slide is empty. Everything is empty. It's all for me. So I can put myself into any of these places. And this is what we're doing all the time. Our mind is playing with the potential of the appearances which arise for us. So you might be reading a book and you hear someone shout your name. So now you pay attention to your name being called. Your attention goes from the book. So this is like the child goes on the swing 3 times and then runs over to go down the slide. This is our life, going on and on and on as we run around this play park of samsara. We seem to be experiencing a lot, but the moment of experiencing is always vanishing. To talk about playing in the park is not the same as being on the swing. We learn to substitute the concept for the experience. We know that experiences vanish. Our holidays vanish. Sunday night, you have to go back to school on Monday. But you can hang on to the concept of what you did on Saturday. Now, this is where we become stupid. The actuality, the ungraspable immediacy of Saturday is gone, but you get to school on the Monday morning and the teacher says, okay, everyone, we're going to write a page on what I did on Saturday. Then hand them in to me and I'll see how your writing is doing. You get rewarded for your skill in representation, representation. There was no way to give a mark for Saturday in the swing park. It was so full of life, but ungraspable. But now the teacher can put a mark on what you have written. So this is where we see how emptiness itself is ungraspable. There is nothing separate from emptiness, so everything is ungraspable. And yet, perversely, we manage to grasp at the non-existent. Tell me about what you did on Saturday. It's gone. You're talking the echo of Saturday into existence. And by your action of talking, you're making the non-existent Saturday appear to be existent. Emptiness cannot be experienced because it is the ground or the basis for the emergence of experience. Experience is one aspect of the revelation of the potential of the ground. So if you are the child on Saturday morning running into the park, there is the color of the metal chain holding the swings. There is so much detail which is immediately flowing in through your senses. And you have the arising of the mental and emotional potential for apprehending, for taking hold of your sense of what is there. The experiencer and the experienced are both emergent. And although it is clear that they do emerge, they emerge in the way that a reflection emerges in a mirror. Precise, detailed, but without any inherent existence. Okay, and then next question is also maybe in this line. It says, talk about stories of power and the power of stories. Which Dharma stories could help people today outside Dharma? This is a nice question, but an impossible question. Which people outside Dharma? We have some people here with us tonight from America, from Brazil, from Spain. What is a good story for Spanish people? Maybe Brazilian people need a different kind of story because they are Brazilian. Just hearing that, you can see it's crazy because we like some stories at some times. Various stories will touch different people at different times. The story of the Buddha is a privileged young man who gives up his wealthy family home. This looks like a terrible career move. 6 years in the wilderness, but then he sits under a tree The light bulb comes on and he has a great idea. He is the first Dharma entrepreneur of our period. He is the CEO of Buddhism. Now, Mum is very proud. How well you have done, my brilliant son. You can tell these stories in so many different ways. Personally, I think Buddhism is not an evangelical philosophy or religion because it's not inviting you to homogenize yourself into group membership, but rather the Buddha taught 84,000 approaches to understanding. And it's up to us to have some curiosity or not, to decide to study in a deep way or not, to start to meditate or not. Because if the goal is freedom, then the path also has to be um, suffused with the flavor of freedom. So I think in that way, people find their way. How will I know if I found the right way? Well, the factors that determine your way include your karma. Karma means your tendencies, your inclinations, what takes your attention. There are many countries where people make flatbread, and in other countries, people make bread with yeast in it. So the flour is roughly the same, but according to how it is mixed and what kind of oven you use, it manifests in a different form. So we cook ourselves according to how our potential is revealed through our personality, the kind of family we grew up in, and so on. Now, if you are looking and you're reading books, some aspects of practice or the way people have lived will appeal to you and others will not. But which is the best? The best is the practice that you actually do. That is to say, it's the one that sings to you, the one that you actually do. You might fancy doing some very elaborate yoga, but actually you have an old tired body and it's not going to bend too much. Your body says, not for me. Oh, but it's the best way. It's the only way. All the Buddhas have bent their bodies. You might believe that, but that's because you haven't looked enough at the paintings of Buddhas. There are plenty of fat Buddhas. Yeah. So what is the how shall we help people to come into Buddhism? Clearly, try to be kind, try to be friendly. That might impress some of your friends or people you work with, and they might ask, how come you're so quiet or you're so calm when there's a lot of pressure at work? Because the problem here is the restrictive nature the restrictive nature of intentionality. If you do things the right way, you will get a good result. So you have to do the right thing. How will you know if it's right for you? Well, in every Buddhist system, there are people who will tell you this is what you have to do. Whether it's a Theravadan slow meditative walking or Mahayana development of compassion, this is what we do, and we do the best thing. So if you do what we do, you'll be all right. Fit in, be normal. Maybe not. Maybe you are a very strange person, in which case you need strange Buddhism. And there's plenty of strange Buddhism. So the first thing you have to do is look at yourself. So to go back to the question, how do we interest people in the project of looking at themselves? If somebody says, oh, I get depressed a lot, the normal response is to offer some advice. You should see a doctor. I think exercise is good for depression. Maybe you drink too much alcohol. So these kind of suggestions you get very easily. Something must be done. There's always somebody available to tell you what you have to do. But from the point of view of Dzogchen, really all we have to do is to be interested in how we are. Pay attention to how you are. How is your breathing? How is your posture? Does your posture influence your breathing? This is not a very complicated thing. You bend over and squeeze your gut and see how that affects your breathing. Then you sit up straight, you let the diaphragm relax, and then you see how your breathing is. Oh, through my posture, I can collaborate with the easy flow of breath. So from the point of view of Dzogchen, it's not about some special story that will interest people or stories of great yogis and all the things they achieved. But perhaps if we relate with other people, we can observe how we can observe the manner in which our different ways of speaking open or close down curiosity in the other. So that's the key thing. If somebody thinks they're depressed, then we can maybe say, oh, how is that for you? We don't need to ask why, which might require them to talk about their childhood or some trauma or something intimate or private. And just, how is that for you? So rather than telling stories for other people, we can encourage them or invite them to tell their story in a way that allows them to reveal something new of how they are to themselves. Okay. Oh, and this links on to the next question. Are traumas serious impediments to realizing your true nature? Is enlightenment possible with such problems? So this goes back to what we looked at about half an hour ago. It could have been a chronic kind of trauma of never being loved or cared for in your childhood. It could be a sudden acute trauma like a rape or a car crash. From the point of view of meditation, the question is, who did this happen to? Something happened, that's for sure. The structure of traumas tend to be either there is an excess or a lack, an excess of pain, an excess of enforced intimacy, or a lack of loving kindness and care. Both of these forces cause us to be decentered. So, a very useful thing to do is to, when you have your own time, stand up straight in the middle of the room and then lean to one side and then lean to the other side and front and back. And then you see very directly when I'm not centered and grounded, there is a lot of tension because now my muscles are having to do what my skeleton should be doing. And then, of course, you're holding yourself in a position, and that affects your breathing and relaxation and adrenaline in the body and so on. So this is generally what trauma does. It brings all kind of subtle tensions in the muscles which don't release. And in the autonomous nervous system, it usually leads to habitual generation of adrenaline. So there's a kind of hypervigilance. And for most of us, in the environments we live in, there are always provocations to encourage that tension. So the basic orientation in Dzogchen is relax, release, relax again, release more. We're not striving to build up the two accumulations of merit and wisdom. We're not trying to create ourselves in some new formation, but we become aware that we are self-limiting. We hang on to habit formations from the past, assumptions about who we are, how we should live. So with the trauma, for example, if you have to, a car crash, you have to be in a wheelchair, you might have ongoing physical pain, and you also might feel that you've ruined your own life. Well, there's an ongoing flow of sensation and emotion and cognition that feeds into building a narrow identification of what you can do with your life. So it's, in a sense, it's simply an intense form of the ordinary problem. I need to relax and release. But if you have a kind of spasming in the body, it's as if the body is doing the grasping and attaching rather than the mind. So we simply have to relax more. One of the ways we don't relax is we fight against our existence. I don't want to accept that this has happened to me. The trauma could also arise as a diagnosis, that you find you have a bipolar disorder or tendency to schizophrenia episodes. So Namkhai Norbu always used to talk about working with circumstances. And he linked this with not entering into judgment. Don't solidify your life situation. Don't turn it into something defined and restrictive. In order to work with circumstances, you have to be close to how it is. If you have a little garden and you want to grow some flowers, you have to know what the nature of the soil is, whether it's acidic or alkaline, whether it's heavy with clay, and that will let you know how you need to work with it. So if the soil is very heavy clay, quite a lot of things don't grow so well there. But the one I really wanted to grow doesn't grow in my garden. But that is not working with circumstances. That is blaming circumstances because they don't fit with your idea. So we always want to return to the actual phenomena. Less interpretation and more simple observation and being with. Then you find out how your breathing is. Then you can observe whether you eat your food very quickly, whether you chew it enough, if you get stomach pain later, and so on. Start to become more conscious of how thoughts arise in the mind. Then you can observe simply, directly, I believe that my thoughts tell me the truth about who I am. So I believe in the thought because I believe that the thought is telling me the truth. Now, if you recall what we were talking about earlier, you can maybe see the problem. It is as if this habitual patterning of my thoughts is showing me the truth about my fundamental limitation and identity. It's telling me about this is your life. No wonder we might feel trapped in a trauma reaction. So when we relax, what we're doing is relaxing our tendency to believe, because belief is the giving of mental energy into the arising formation. So we just sit with the thought, even say the thought is very self-hating. No one loves me, I fucked up everything. Comes around again and again. Automatic negative thought. Why is it being repeated? Because it keeps vanishing. If the thought came and went like a tattoo onto your forehead, you wouldn't need to keep repeating it. Oh, it's vanishing. It's vanishing. And that's the same with sensation in the body, with feelings of lostness and hopelessness. So if you stay with what's arising, for example, my mother never loved me. Why? Why couldn't she love me? If only she had loved me. I'm in the business of thought production, narrative elaboration. I will find out the meaning of my life by telling me stories about myself. Then we relax in the out breath and we simply sit with this habit formation. And if we do this in a reasonable way, short periods of sitting, and continue it over time, we will see that these arisings thin by themselves. You are not a thing. Pain, emotional pain, physical pain, can increase the sense of our thingness. If we sit and observe, we see it is movement. And when movement is occurring in repetitive patterns, that is because it's being directed there by our belief and by our energetic orientation. So from the point of view of our practice, we don't want to struggle to change things because everything changes. When you see directly, the content of your experience is always shifting, then you don't need to try to change it. But when you have a trauma structure, it is as if there is a repetition of a very narrow patterning, which comes again and again and again. This is your life potential having been somehow captured into a loop around the repetition of certain factors. This comes about through grasping. The grasping of muscular tension, the grasping of energetic tension through the prana system. But most specifically, it comes from the grasping of belief which is often invisible to us. I know that this is how I am. No, you believe it. And if you can see that you believe it and that belief is a potential invested with your life energy, then you can relax and release this tension slowly, carefully, and then there's more space, more creativity, more potential. So that's the end for today. This weekend, Saturday and Sunday, we have some more teaching on Dzogchen through the Chet Sangpa text. So thank you to our translators this evening, Mariana and Milton and Jayachita. And I hope this has been useful to you. Okay, the end.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, James. Thank you, James.
Thank you
very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, James.
Yes.
Thank you, Dzogchen.
Thank
Bye.
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 Bye.